September 22nd, 2020. Congressional Candidate Matthew Heines files complaint with the FBI, the Center for Disease Control, the United States Attorney General's Office, and the state of Washington over police corruption, harassment, and reckless endangerment resulting from King County court system intentionally ignoring laws and statutes regarding COVID-19 and forcing an attempted exposure to coronavirus. In a complaint filed yesterday, September 22nd, 2020, with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Congressional Candidate, author, and teacher Matthew Heines charged Officer Gresham of the Redmond Police Department with lying on a police report, tampering with evidence, and perjury. In addition, Matthew Heines also charged Judge Michelle Gehlsen with intentionally forcing him to attend a court session while all the other cases were heard over Zoom. Heines also charges court-appointed attorney Karmali with denying him the options of attending the court via Zoom after he complained of not feeling well as defrauding the government and lying on a number of occasions. In the complaint to the U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI Seattle office, the Attorney General William Barr, the King County Council, Washington State Coronavirus Response, the Center for Disease Control, the Washington State Bar Association, Officer Gresham, Redmond Police Department, and various news agencies. To whom it may concern, because I'm not sure if I was infected with COVID-19 while I was in the King County Municipal Court yesterday, I want to make sure this incident is on the record. If I was in fact infected, come down with the virus, or worse. I was forced by the King County Court to attend a court hearing in person in spite of my objections of feeling ill. While every other citizen is given the option to attend remotely, I was given an ultimatum, lied to by my court-appointed attorney, and given no option to attend the hearing at home in violation of state and federal regulations. I am filing a formal assault, continuing harassment, and reckless endangerment complaint against King County for requiring me to attend a court hearing in person against the direct laws and regulations stipulated by the Center for Disease Control, the government of Washington State, and the declaration read in court by a judge named Michelle Gehlsen. In that declaration, Michelle Gehlsen stated court hearings were to be done over Zoom as required by the Supreme Court. Yet, I was required by subpoena I received to appear in court in person. Why was I required to attend the court in person? Why, after I advised my court-appointed attorney that I didn't feel well and was waiting for the Zoom link, did that attorney not provide me with the link? Instead, he lied and said he would be appearing on video, yet he was in the court when I got there. When I arrived in the court, Michelle Gehlsen immediately yelled at me because my mask had slipped over my nose. To my immediate left, there was an elderly woman who had been sitting near the entrance, obviously for longer than I had been there, with no mask. The judge then yelled at her, "Seriously? Why did she allow that woman to sit there with no mask until I got into the courtroom?" At that point, a gentleman approached me and asked me to talk outside. I followed him and asked him who he was, after he told me to stay 6 feet away from him. He told me he was a Mr. Karmali, my court-appointed attorney. He then informed me that, due to a conflict of interest, he could not represent me. He explained in an email, see below, he was a member of that particular 24-hour fitness and was somehow associated with the guy who yelled at me and came at me in the 24-hour fitness pool, along with another witness in the case. I asked this Mr. Karmali in an email how he was associated, and he refused to answer. I will also point out now that Mr. Karmali sent me an email at 1:47 announcing his conflict of interest less than 30 minutes before court. He has had a month to look into this case. Only a half hour before he has to be in court, does he see there is a conflict of interest? How much has he billed King County for this case? Either way, he wasted a month of my time. Whatever his motivations for doing so, the fact is, neither Mr. Karmali nor Mr. Rice before him had any interest whatsoever in my defense, other than to come across as indifferent and then almost hostile as I tried to explain what was going on with the case. 2 hours prior to Mr. Karmali's conflict of interest email at 11:47, I sent Mr. Karmali an email and told him I was not feeling well and wished also to appear on Zoom. Mr. Karmali did not respond to this email. His last information stated he would not be in court, with no other instructions than to be in the courtroom at 2:15. I went to the court. Again, Mr. Karmali demonstrated no interest in my personal safety, nor did he or the court offer me a Zoom link. Instead, he and the King County judge and prosecutor deliberately had me attend a court system where I could be and maybe was exposed to COVID-19 so that he could tell me he would not be my attorney. These are criminal acts, but let's not get ahead of ourselves here. So that leads us to today, September 22nd, 2020. I called the Redmond Police Department at 6 a.m. to file an assault complaint for being forced into the courtroom yesterday, which was against the law and a violation of my rights. I spoke to dispatcher 940 at around 6 a.m. She took my information and said an officer would return my call. The officer who returned my call at around 6:30 identified himself as Officer T. Gresham, badge number 1162. I asked him if he was the same officer on the subpoena I received in February. I asked him if he had ever spoken to me before. Then I told him my lawyer told me that he, Officer T. Gresham, claimed to have spoken to me 3 times, and I asked him if he had ever spoken to me. The fact is, Officer T. Gresham had never spoken to me once. If he has, he will have no problem citing when and where. To give him the benefit of the doubt, I asked him if the lawyer was saying it or if he was saying it. Officer T. Gresham then got angry and almost started yelling. He said it was all part of the court record and deferred to whatever the attorney, Andrew Rice, told me. In other words, Officer T. Gresham is willing to risk charges of perjury, falsifying evidence, and lose his job and career because of what Andrew Rice told me? So in summary, to add to my rather extensive complaint about filing a complaint for assault back in November of 2019, and then receiving a subpoena to be charged with assault after announcing my run for election in February of 2020. After a summer of harassment, terror, and fear affecting my political campaign, my wife, and myself psychologically, culminating with being dragged into court on the day of the primary election, I want to further add to that complaint and my complaint about interfering in a federal election. To denying my civil rights, I add reckless endangerment, assault, denying my right to an attorney, denying my right to a fair and speedy trial, denying me witnesses to speak on my behalf, harassment, malicious prosecution, etc., etc. I would certainly ask the United States Department of Justice to look into perjury, violation of numerous COVID-19 regulations, and the continued harassment of an American citizen for political reasons. I thank you for your time. I will be running in the 2022 election. If you don't think these folks need to be brought to justice, we'll see if the voters do. Thank you. I'm Matthew D. Heines. I'm running for Congress in 2022, and I hope that you will stay with me because we need to put these people behind bars.